10% happier to get many percent bigger. The latest from Podnews.net with Memberful, helping you build reliable, recurring revenue from your podcast. 10% Happier is expanding to launch its own podcast studio, developing a wide range of shows that will explore the intersection of everyday life and mindfulness. The new podcast studio has launched under the leadership of Jen Poyant from WNYC Studios and Stable Genius Productions and Kimmy Regler from Gimlet Media. In 2021, podcast companies raised at least $371 million in funding, according to Sounds Profitable's Brian Barletta. In this week's newsletter with Magellan AI, he gives a recap of 2021's podcast acquisitions and funding. It's been quite a year. Riverside has launched a new tool to create social media clips for your podcast. Integrated into their remote recording system, Clips is launched to everyone today. Dave Weiner, the inventor of the podcast RSS feed, has written a blog post on why, in his opinion, podcasting isn't dominated by one large company and what we can learn from that. Wondery's CEO, Jen Sargent, has told Business Insider the company is looking to expand to a global footprint. The Fountain app has launched a new update. It removes the need to create an account, adds improved performance, and has fixed a bug or two. Hot Dog Jumping Frog, KABQ, Albuquerque, formerly an iHeart radio station, isn't going back to podcasts after the holiday. The station flipped to Christmas music earlier this month and will become Fox Sports 1350 AM on January the 3rd. Benjamin Partridge, the host and writer of the Beef and Dairy Network, the number one podcast for those involved or just interested in the production of beef animals and dairy herds, is interviewed by Headstuff, a surreal comedy podcast. The article discusses his writing technique and how the show has grown in 78 episodes. Bitcoin magazine looks at how the cryptocurrency is being used by podcasters, and Paul Bay, the producer of The Black Tapes and The Big Loop, is looking a little worse for wear today after an argument with his car door. We wish him well. And in People News, Double Elvis has been busy. They've hired Sam Lazarus as Chief of Staff, Kayla Moriarty as Vice President of Marketing and Audience Growth, Fabian Mickens as Marketing Director, Corey Cambridge as Showrunner, Taylor Bettinson as Producer of Content Communications, Matt Tahaney as Production Engineer, and Leah Tatoris as Ad Operations Coordinator. And in podcast news, new from Global's podcast hosting company Captivate comes Captivate Insider, a weekly behind-the-scenes show hosted by Gary Aylett. The Bugle is being recorded in Melbourne today in front of a live audience. Host Andy Zaltzman and producer Chris are in Australia to make the audio newspaper for a visual world. The podcast is 14 years old this year. The BBC has announced that The Lazarus Heist is to return for a second season, but you'll be waiting a while. It's scheduled for the second half of 2022. And interested in too many things, especially things that don't seem related? Perhaps you're majoring in everything, like NYU professor, comedian, circus performer, data scientist, and podcast host Andrea Jones-Rui. This week's guest is Dr. Moya McTeer, who's an astrophysicist, folklorist, and science communicator. This podcast is brought to you with Memberful. Memberful allows you to build a sustainable recurring revenue through membership and handles the hard stuff, so you can focus on what you do best while earning revenue quickly. You can get started now without a credit card. Find out more at memberful.com. That's memberful.com. And that's the latest from our daily newsletter at podnews.net.